Well, I'm getting a real kick out of looking at a particular book which two photographs illustrate how I went from being somewhat casual in my woodworking to trying to get pretty serious about Greene and Greene. This is a book called Greene and Greene, The Passion and the Legacy by Randall Mackinson, who was for many years the curator of the Gamble House in Pasadena, the one Greene and Greene house that visitors can go in anytime they want. First picture that really brings back memories shows the inside of a room at the Huntington Art Museum in Southern California that is devoted to Greene and Greene furniture, lamps, cabinets, metalwork, the kind of decorative items that Charles Greene especially loved to design and sometimes carry out himself. I saw two sideboards, a dining room table, chairs, a magnificent lamp, smaller lamps, and I looked at these sideboards especially, and I had never seen anything quite like it. They were not what I had seen in books of the Greene and Greene style. I later found out they never did this style again, and I vowed at that point I was going to see if I could make a copy of the smaller of those two sideboards. This would have been about 1999. I came back to the museum, and after having written a letter to the director asking if it would be possible to come and take measurements and photographs, explaining that I was not a professional, this piece was not going to be made to be sold. It would only be one, and it would be in my house if everything worked out. They gave me permission. They said, you can come and take pictures, but no flash. You can take measurements, but you can't touch the piece. You can't open any drawers. You can't use ink. But that's all I needed. I got the photographs. I took the rough dimensions, and I was able to come back and execute the piece. I'm extremely proud of it. I don't know of anybody who's actually made that piece. Most of the other Greene and Greene work, their chairs, tables, cabinets, somebody has made a copy. So I'm happy that I did it and get a lot of pleasure out of using it. Let me show you some of the tricky things in this piece. This piece has a bowed front. It isn't just straight across. So that means that the angle of this drawer front is not going to meet the side of the drawer at 90 degrees. It's going to be over 90 degrees. You can see the dovetails there. It's just a little more complicated because they don't meet at 90 degrees in the way you actually cut out the two sides. Not that difficult, but you just need to take a little extra care. Then the other thing I want to show you is the beautiful design of the handles. Again, all credit Charles Greene, sort of the ribbon effect. Pretty simple to look at. It's a little bit of work, but not so difficult. Here's a part that really was tedious and demanding. I'm very proud of how it came out. Charles Greene designed this piece to have these drawers have a vertical grain to be contrasted to the generally softer looking grain running this way in the rest of the piece. So I was able to find some batch of the teak that I was using that indeed did that, and then how to create this cloud lift pattern that appears to be inlaid in these doors and also have the vertical ribbon handle this way. So here's the steps that this is how I did it. It's not really inlaid. First is I found a piece of wood that is this size with the grain running that way. Then I made a cut here as long as these pieces were going to be and ripped that off, so you now had two pieces, this piece and this piece. The handle hasn't even been made yet. Then I made these two, they call it cloud lift pattern, by a bandsaw or a table saw maybe for some of it, and then inside curves with a bandsaw, and having to get those very smooth. You don't want any jagged or small little indentations. It's got to be smooth. I then took this edge onto this piece that's this big, and I marked the edge where they're going to go together. And I cut that piece and smoothed it to match this. And again, that's very, very patient work. For example, let's say that you've got this piece made, and you make a cut here, but this line here starts to go out too much. And now you have a gap between them, and that won't look very good. So as you're working on this piece and creating this curve that matches it, you have to approach it slowly and try it, approach it again, try it till you finally get it. All right, so now you've got this piece and the right curve here. Then you take this edge of this piece and you mark it on what's left of this piece. Now the challenge is to get this curve to match the curve on that piece. And again, slow, careful approach till you get it right. Now you take the contour of this one and you use it to mark the rest of what's left, which is that. And do the same thing till you get that. Then you take this edge and mark it on the rest. So when you're done, you have a piece here that's not yet glued together. You have this piece, this piece, this piece, and then you glue them together with the clamps going this way. Maybe 3 or 4 clamps just to get good pressure. And so you now have a piece that you can see, if I turn it inside the other way, you'll be able to see that this goes all the way through, this piece goes all the way through to the other side. It's not inlaid work. Okay, now you've got that done. So now we've got this piece from here up to this point, and you can see that it wasn't inlaid from the other side. It's all glued this way. Then we take the leftover piece that we cut off before and we glue it on there. And so now it's one piece. And so it looks as though we have somehow inlaid that in there, but we didn't do that. Now we're ready to screw and glue the handle onto the drawer front. The inside of the cabinet is in a lighter wood. Now, I've already said that they wouldn't let me open the cabinet, so that wasn't, I don't think probably Charles Greene necessarily did that. I don't think it was too popular in those days, but I took a page out of the kind of work that James Krenov and many other fine woodworkers, the idea that a lighter wood, when you look inside a cabinet, is kind of inviting instead of being dark in there. So that's what I decided to do.